For today's DC fast charging video, I am inside the new Volkswagen ID.Buzz. If you want to know more about this and why I think this is quite simply the most family-friendly EV on sale in North America today, be sure and check out that video. But we're going to talk about the DC fast charging curve because it is different for the North American ID.Buzz. And that's because we have a bigger battery, but there's only the one battery and it is a 400 volt nominal battery. So it's not going to charge quite as quickly as some. Volkswagen says this battery will hit 200 kilowatts peak, but for some reason I have never seen that option available. You'll notice one cool touch here is that in the infotainment software it tells you the current quick charge potential. Now, right now the battery is at 8% state of charge. We have that battery warning there, and it will find DC fast charge stations for you in the nav software. It nicely prefers Electrify America stations. I do think that's actually kind of handy, and it will show you the status, how many stations are actually available for the Electrify America stations. There's also charge routing, and it is pretty quick, so all that internet connectivity is definitely very, very handy. Now let's just go ahead and plug in and see what happens. We should be hitting 190 kilowatts peak. Well, we plugged in and we just crossed 10%. You can see it actually is hitting slightly above the 190 kilowatt fast charge potential that it said, but we have not hit anything over 194 kilowatts so far. We'll just see how this charge goes and check back in the studio.
The ID.Buzz never did hit 200 kilowatts, but it got really close at around 22 to 23%, where we hit 199 kilowatts. It's probably a rounding error. I'll give it the win. Because what's more important about this charge curve is the look of the curve. Check this out. If you're not impressed, I'll break it down for you. It's really horizontal, and it doesn't have any weird peaks and valleys like so many charge curves do. It just charges really rapidly all the way to 100%, and we did take this battery to completely full. And honestly, 80 to 100% is where all the impressive things happen for this pack, because even at 99% state of charge, it was still accepting 33 kilowatts. That means that from 90 to 100%, this battery is actually charging about as rapidly as the battery in a Porsche Taycan. It charges really fast all the way full. And that's of course important because a full battery doesn't get you as far as many EVs. But if you were to compare this charge curve to something like a Hyundai Ioniq 5 or a Kia EV6 with those original slightly smaller batteries, it would actually take you about the same time to get completely full from 10%, right around 44 or 45 minutes here, but you'd actually be getting more power into the battery of the ID.Buzz because this is a bigger battery. In fact, going from 80% to 100% only took, let's see, by the numbers here, it was another 26 minutes or so. That's a pretty decent time because in many EVs, going from 10% to 80% will be less than half the time of going from 80% to 100%, especially in some of those less expensive EVs with battery packs that really slow down over that 80% mark. Now, how does this impact you on a road trip? Well, let's take a look at our new road trip range chart here. So on the left side of your screen, you can see the charge time. That's starting at 10% on up to 100% and the number of minutes required to get you there. But a lot of you were telling us that, hey, that wasn't the most useful number. You wanted to know how many miles you'd get out of 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or 30 minutes of charging. Well, there's that for you in the middle of your screen. You'll see that 10 minutes of charging will only get you 72 miles, and that's because of the relative inefficiency. If, however, Volkswagen stuck this exact same battery pack in one of their more efficient vehicles, well, you could see the real benefit there, because if you could get 4 miles per kilowatt hour or 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour out of a pack, you'd have a seriously quick charging EV out there. But I still think this is very impressive performance for something like the ID.Buzz, because remember, this is a big minivan-shaped thing. Well, a minivan-shaped minivan, if you will. And that means that on a road trip, it actually performs a bit better than I had expected. For instance, if we use our ARBP route planner and we plug in our actual real-world efficiency numbers and our real-world charge curve, so say I wanted to take the kids to Disneyland, well, that 341-mile journey would only require 43 minutes of DC fast charging. That would be 2 stops, about 20-something minutes a pop. That's not the worst because it would take some time to, get the pretzels out of the seat, get the goldfish back in the kid, get the kids back in the car. I think that's a relatively reasonable charge time. Of course, you would end up in Los Angeles at 10% state of charge, so you'd need to find somewhere to plug in down there. The tricky bit with the range in the ID.Buzz is that if you are driving faster than 70 miles an hour, you will definitely see your range really fall off the cliff there just because of the aerodynamic realities. So if you're going 75 miles an hour, a full battery is not quite going to get you 200 miles. So depending on the speed limits in your area, you really need to adjust your driving style downwards probably to get some of these range figures. And if, like me, you have in-laws that are about 100 miles away, it's really one of those borderline cases where can you get there and back without stopping, which would be my preference, and that's probably my minimum point of entry for a family vehicle like this. Well, in my situation, it would still be pretty tough, but admittedly, you'd only probably need to stop for 5 or 10 minutes to actually kick it on the rest of the way, as long as those charge stations were available, of course. Or if you could take a 240-volt portable EVSE with you and plug it into someone's dryer outlet while you were there, you could definitely reclaim a reasonable amount of range on the average stop that you'd spend at your in-laws or your grandparents' house or whatever. 4 or 5 hours maybe there, you'd have a reasonable amount of range recovery, even at some of those larger portable charging speeds, as long as you're not charging at level 1. Level 1 is not going to get you a whole lot of real-world range in an hour of charging in the ID.Buzz because of that relatively high consumption figure. Let me know what you think about that down there in the comment section below, and I would love to see what Volkswagen could do with the battery pack that was maybe 20 kilowatt hours larger than this. Something like a 105 kilowatt hour battery pack I think would actually be a really good sweet spot for the ID.Buzz, although logically that would make it way more and there would be other compromises here and there. But I would love to see what they could do with maybe a slightly more energy dense chemistry, maybe something that's slightly lighter, some other weight savings here and there, because packaging a bigger battery pack I think would be a really great thing for this otherwise really solid minivan. If you haven't already done so, be sure and check out the full video on the ID.Buzz. You'll find that on the Auto Buyer's Guide channel. See all of you later.